Here. All right, so do we have any public comment cards? Anything? Only don't. Recognitions. Any recognitions this month, PJ?
Nothing.
All righty. So let's move on into action items here real quick. Everybody got the chance to look over the meeting minutes from last month?
Motion to accept minutes.
Motion to accept in second. Second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right. Next on, let's review and approve the previous month's financials. That's Kaylee.
Oh.
Don't read. Okay.
Okay, so if you'll turn to the financial sheet in your packet. So for the month of June, the total amount of revenues collected. For the month of June, $402,000, bringing our date revenue collection to $590,000. Looking at the operations expenses, this is 75% of the year, so just that this entire is over on the far right. Same recurring themes, wages have been here and anticipated, so categories of whole issues and theoretically should be that, because there are other subcategories that are under, so it there were this one. The medical fixed route is showing a little bit elevated in this month, and that is attributed to two specific employee situations that occurred in March. If we move down to the planning and administration, this category is under 75% at about 65%. So that, and most of those are under, so I'm going to go through the numbers. On P&M expenses for the total category, use percentage of 81.94, we are 75. Some large overages in this one, again, are going to be related to wages and elevated in cases. Pretty small comparison to the total. And then there is the on next page. These are just the claims that have been heard this year that were unanticipated. So the next one, building maintenance, is category very much below 75 or 42%. Most of these are under. Air transit as a category is pretty spot on with where they're supposed to be. Some of the wages under the supervisors are elevated, but the pay is concerned with this category of health and support. So total budget expended to date is at 78.81%. So
Any questions? I think, yeah, the two items that Kaylee mentioned on for the health insurance. So we have HRA plans. And so like in those specific instances, if somebody had some type of like medical procedure, they can pay, I think, up to like 7,000, and like the company will reimburse them 3,700 if it's a traditional HRA, or 4,000 for deductible HRA. And so that just kind of depends on when procedures like that happen, and then like employees, they actually have to like turn the receipts and then be. So those are those two items that kind of kick the health insurance up this month. But other than that, everything else is fairly standard.
Might want to make a motion to approve or deny or. I'll second. Second. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? All right. Motion carries. All right. So, PJ, looks like you're up. We're going to move into informational items. This is the 2025 draft. PJ is going to give us all the fun details and financials. And probably need to make sure that we're in teams. Can we present that? Throw that up on the screen so everybody can see that correctly?
Yeah, I got it. And that should be in the board packet as well that was distributed. So I'll just run through quickly each of the various areas. And I'll kind of start on page 3 of this, but this kind of just overall kind of what the budget's looking at like compared to last year, and really the overall. So total expenses, what we're looking at overall 1.8% increase, so 122,000 over what we budgeted last year. Even though we are over budget in several areas this year, I think for next year we're definitely going to be clamping down on some of the areas, including wages is one of the big ones where we're going to really clamp down on overtime expenses that we have. And so that 1.8 increase overall is going to lead to a.
TJ, I may have screwed up your share. I thought we were on this computer.
Oh yeah, I already had it up.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, let me reshare this. Okay.
Sorry, I thought she was doing that. It's like.
Oh yeah.
Sure. Apologize.
No problem.
There we go.
Okay. So yeah, overall, that's the overall increase, and then the ask from the cities, what that translates to is going to be 100,000 overall requested increase. So, and I'll get to that 4th page here in just a second, but really quickly, I'll run through each of the pages, just starting from page 1. So page 1, we have on wages, 0.6%. You'll see in the bottom right of the wages total. So the overall increase in wages that we're doing is 4%. The 8.6% is just this is again comparison from prior year budget to this year's budget, and so more we're just there's people that were like adding in. So like last year there was a couple of positions just due to attrition. We didn't actually budget everybody's salary because typically we were. We were short staffed, and so I would take out some of them. And so this year I didn't do that. I added in all the wages and then put in the proper overtimes that we're actually expecting. So on like just overall, the actual increase that is a 4%, but just from the budgeted number, it's an 8% overall increase. That 0.3 million is what the overall wage expense that we're projecting for this coming year. And then the fringe benefits, so that it shows a quite a bit higher number. It shows an overall 16% increase. Now, a lot of this is going to be really just right sizing from what we're budgeted. So one of the mess ups that we had last year was on the unemployment insurance. So historically, we've been paying about 1.2% unemployment taxes, and so last year that actually kicked up to 5.85%. But at that time, we didn't have that number when we were budgeting. So I was continuing to budget that 1 point.
Why did that increase so much?
So that's based on like the number of claims. And I think just like system-wide and statewide, just with the just overall like unemployment claims that are filed. And so, yeah, so the actual number that we're paying was 5.5. Again, we before that, it was 1.2 or something like that. So budgeting that in, and then that was probably, I guess, like one of the bigger drivers. And then again, like just the increases, that's going to naturally drive up the overall, the related payroll taxes, just like FICA taxes on that. And then again, like the health insurance. So health insurance premiums as well. Talking with our benefits broker again, like right now, we don't have even, I think they're going to market here over the next couple of weeks to get like the new insurance rate. Same thing last year, we didn't have actual rates. I think for most people, companies, I don't know how many you guys are involved with, like the setting the health insurance for health companies, but from our broker, what they're seeing industry-wide, it's double increases. Really, they're looking at like 15 to 20% increases if they're saying, with the same carriers. So they're going to market here for the month, depending on what that number looks like. If we need to switch carriers, we might switch carriers. At the moment, we're also covering 100% of the premiums. That may change again if it's something super high. We might change that to where we're covering 90%. I think a lot of coverage you'll see where the company covers 85%, 90%, but employee covers the other additional 10%, something like that. That's something that's definitely on the table. If the increase that we get is extremely high, so we'll definitely evaluate that. But hopefully, in the next month we'll get that number. Right now, we're just kind of plugging what what you anticipate, but it's something that we're definitely going to be watching. And if we have to, again, it's a pain. I think changing carriers, new insurance cards, everybody has to go through new enrollments, new plan documents, explaining those changes. So it's not something that we want to do, but if the increases come in extremely high, I think, and that's where if you switch over to a new carrier, it's kind of like, a lot of things, they'll kind of get you with that introductory rate, so you get a lower rate. But then when you renew with them, that's where they kind of get you on the renewal. So
we had one of those double-digit increases this year as far as the negotiators. They tried to do that. Negotiated back with the price of the process. Significantly expensive. Okay. We'll negotiate that. So the negotiation is working on these sides. At the same time,
yeah, we'll definitely press back on the rates, and then if they're not able to reduce it, then we'll switch carriers if we have to. So, and then even for some of these guys, like what we said, started another item last year with this thing called Patient, where they say it's no fees, but there's actually a platform and technology fee associated with it. But it's, if somebody has some type of medical procedure, they essentially give a loan to the employee, and then through payroll deductions, that loan is paid back to this company. But again, there's a platform fee with that, and so that was something we weren't aware of. So that was something else that wasn't budgeted last year. That I'm not even including this because I think that's one benefit that we want to scrap in this upcoming year. But yeah, so yeah, we're looking at all the options, and as soon as we get those rates, and we'll.
The only thing telehealth services, how that was a big thing on us this year was if our employees use telehealth costs them times not. But that cost the company, they either or the insurance company to cover that as opposed to
Yeah, and we use Amaze for telehealth. So yeah, we do have that option as well. So yeah, hopefully it keeps the claims down, that keeps the overall premium.
really work sure for
Yeah, and that's a good thing. So we'll definitely be sure to push that option to employees, just notify them that they actually have that option available. So that way they're using that a little bit more as opposed to the clinic or something. That's that cost.
Yeah, we could even offer that at employee covered medical time. That would be an option for health budget.
But okay, yeah.
Just a question going back up. We have, I guess I'm not familiar. We have drivers that just assign para.
Yeah, so all the drivers are either assigned fixed route or para. Now some of them crossover if they're para driver sick, then
How many
fixed route.
para drivers?
7. That's Eight budgeted.
versus how many fixed routes?
The fixed route is like 35.
So the pair
34.
drivers make significantly more per hour than the fixed route.
Sorry, say that one more time.
Do the pair drivers make per hour than the fixed route?
No, it's the same.
Well, I don't understand if there's 9 pair drivers, why their wages are projected to go up $66,000 and all the fixed route drivers are $69,000. Seems out of balance.
So
So
on
you
the,
got 9 drivers, their wages will go up the same amount as all your fixed route drivers.
so we actually reduced, so this was just like the budget number from last year. So we reduced the number of budgeted drivers by 1 from last year to this year. And so that's it's like I guess the number of drivers that were budgeted last year versus.
Yeah, I still understand 9 drivers, their wages are going up $66,000 for the year.
So we have less drivers in the
And you've got
fixed route
40
category.
fixed route drivers, and their wages are going up and 3,000 more.
We would have kept the same number of para drivers we had last year, increasing for fixed route drivers.
But you still got 3 times the number of fixed route
Increase.
And if it's like also like CDL versus, so it depends like how many drivers are in para versus the non-CDLs that are in fixed route, because they make a lower rate there. So that's going to account for some of the difference as well. Yeah, it's like all these numbers are like fed in from, like, so I have like every single driver, what they make, and then where they're, like, and again, the increase is the exact same, but
So we've got more of a para drivers that are also CDL cross training.
yeah, I think the ones that we have that are budgeted to para are like CDL.
So what is the CDL?
It's 23 and 19.
So $4. Okay.
Good question. Okay, so then the next page, so that's wages range. Again, that's accounting for most of their budget. The second page, we're going into services. So on services, let's see, overall, we decreased this again. Like a lot of this is just kind of backfilling and trying to plug in like what works for all the numbers. Almost every category we reduced by a handful of percentage. The building maintenance, that last one, that's down 22%. I think we really just over budget. I think the first year when we got the annex online, and then even just like Robert did, there's a lot of annual inspections and things like that. So we actually ran a pretty high number a couple of years ago. And then I kind of carried that number over into the FY24 budget. But then a lot of those like one-time kind of like fixes or like the big expenses were that one year. We didn't income last year, and we're not really anticipating it this year. Actually,
So this is the first year that we have not had Greyhound.
and yeah,
That was great.
facility.
Greyhound passengers.
Mhm. Yeah. So that's quite a bit, and in each of the monthly financials, you'll see like we're very well under budget on that building profession, like the facility side. So I kind of just like right size that number. And then every other category, I think we're roughly running the same, a little bit under. So services overall decreased 6.6%. And again, a lot of this it's just like a big puzzle, and so I roughly know kind of like just with the routes that we're running and kind of where wages is going to be, and then you kind of got to backfill some of the other numbers. And so that's where like we'll definitely have to be tightening up on some of these other things, maybe promoting more services, in-house, things like that. But
What is the bottom contract?
that's our ATP's contract. So yeah, that's the administration. Yeah.
Notice if the fuel budget is going, sorry, I'm going to move the material and supplies.
Yeah.
Notice that we're decreasing. Are we forecasting for mainly the market disruption with elections and everything else coming up? How's that for the fact that
Fuel always goes down.
comes down during the election cycle right after my turn around the spike too?
Yeah, and so that's so generally I just take like a 12-month forecast. It's from the Energy Department website, and so what they're forecasting, I don't try to predict it at all because it's wrong. Which even that Energy Department number is wrong, but at least I can play But yeah, I just say they have like a, month by month projection of what the fuel cost is gonna be. I just take an average of that.
That's a pretty sharp decrease in cost.
Yeah, and so like, yeah, and so part of it too, like, and then I look at like, so there's a couple of things that I'm doing, like one, I'm pulling that data, and then kind of like what number that kind of plugs in for the entire year. But then I also look at trailing 12, and what we're actually seeing trailing 12, and so like we're actually quite a bit lower than what that forecasted number was, and so then at some point I just try to find like a middle ground, and then yeah, so that's what brought that quite a bit down. Hopefully, if the fuel prices don't really change, it should be a fairly accurate number. But again, if they start spiking,
It also depends on who gets elected.
and yeah.
This election's gonna go up. Those things.
Oh, wow.
So this is why I gotta be here for comments like that. No, but no, yeah. So like the thing is, I think even the last couple of years, for the fuel, whenever we budget high, we come in very like quite a bit underneath, and then whenever we budget conservatively, then we go way over. So it's like one of the two. I'm trying to find some type of middle space there, but
That's kind of been our saving grace as far as this year. The first we just named over it, and yeah, shut down. Was quite under the original budgets. That's what kind of the saving factor, and if we do something somewhere else, that's
yeah. So trying to get it as close as possible. But yeah, that's kind of the big driver in that material supply category, the fuel numbers. But everything else is like kind of the smaller dollars. That 900 that's budgeted. Yeah, almost like half of that is for fuel. And then that PM materials and supplies. So that's all the maintenance stuff that Robert's kind of working with. That makes about a third of that. And so we kind of, I think we're roughly on budget. Actually, projected to come under for that category. And so that we put a 9% decrease in that category. But yeah, again, just trying to make the overall budget work. That's kind of where we're at with PM material and supplies.
not the end of the day.
Yeah. Yeah. And then that last category, so utility, that's down quite a bit. So mainly, I know I budgeted quite a bit when we made that annex building go live. So we, threw in a lot of like phone lines there, utilities, and so I thought just with double the number of lines and everything, it would increase quite a bit. It didn't. The bill didn't actually go up substantially. So I'm just kind of right sizing that number. So you'll see like big decreases, 40%, 20%, but it's really just comparing it to trailing 12, what we're actually spending, when we don't really anticipate that changing going forward. So it's kind of mirroring what we've been historically been over this last year. All right, that last category or the last page of the budget numbers. So insurance, 6% increase. It's fairly saying a little bit the same. That Arizona mission, that again is based on the most recent bill we've acted for our Arizona mission is up with managed beneficial insurance. So that
one that protected us in that lawsuit we had.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that went up marginally, and then that first one, that PM comprehensive fleet insurance, so that ATP. Part of that, I mean, it's the premium is the premium, but then the other part, big part of that number, that 380,000, is generally just a kind of a guess on like how many accidents we're gonna have, how much we're gonna have to pay out for those claims, things like that. So we ticked it up just a little bit, but hopefully, like just investing in our safety and training programs, those numbers will come down. But again, it's just one of those kind of up in the air numbers that's hard to really get a calculate, I guess, for that. So
So do you have insurance in there?
yeah, that's in the Arizona section. And then that last category is miscellaneous. So that's just the travel and training, dues, subscriptions. A little bit of change. That dues and subscription, I actually just moved to a different line item. That's why that category is just gone and moving into the services. And then travel and training. There's some upcoming training programs that we have, but cut that just a hair where I almost have. training, we'll reevaluate that for the following fiscal if there's additional training that we could do. And then those last two items that non-eligible, these are, it's kind of a new category. It's there are certain expenses that we like food for like board meetings, just like for, drivers, we'll have like Fridays where we like provide food or for the maintenance, people. Those things are like, they're not eligible for reimbursement. So, we kind of put that off into a separate category, and then advertising as well. So anything advertising related, FDA doesn't reimburse for those type of expenses. So that's that the entire expense is that Hancock advertising. We're still planning on using next year if there's something in the future that we don't, because that's a 100% locally funded, which means city money funded. And so if that's something in the future that we'll reevaluate, definitely do that. But yeah, but overall, again, that overall budget expands 1.8%. I think that's fairly modest, and more is going to be on our side as far as like keeping within the numbers. As far as I think wages, one big one that's going to blow the budget. So we'll definitely keep on.
Is the 2025 projected budget, is that including the extra money from city council we talked about?
No, this is just the overall like that.
Yeah.
The,
You're saying we had to do 100,000 more.
Yeah, so that will be on the next page. So on the next page, this kind of breaks down how that 6.6 is going to be, or 6.8 is going to be funded. So,
Question for you, does this include expanding routes? I mean, we kind of talked about that as far as getting call routes, going to Odessa. That's amazing. Does that include that expansion or no?
this is just steady state, so related to existing routes. And so this next page, so this is where it's getting to your question about where it's funded. So that city support line items, that's where you're seeing that 1.46. So currently we're at 1.6, an additional 100 total from the two cities. That's 50, yeah, from each city, yes.
We know that's going to be 2,000.
Mark, what we're looking into maybe hospital and CDC. On your but we do want to go our convert the runner. I mean, that would be done. So.
Yeah, and whatever we can do on that, with the OBC funding, if there's anything that's needed from us, but from talking with Tim earlier, it seems like it should be covered by OBC funding, but yeah, if there's anything we can. So yeah, overall, for the funding, so the two, I guess, ancillary type of fees that we're collecting, bus fares. So this is the actual fares that we're collecting for the passengers, about 300,000. 20,000 of advertising money, and then we get some state money. That's 806,000. That's from coming from Tech Stop, and then the 5310 and 5307. That's the federal funding. So that's coming the lion's share. Each of those categories, like those columns, funded at a different rate. So fixed route expenses. I think we talked about this maybe in the last meeting, the one before. But fixed route, they cover the expenses at a 50/50 rate for eligible expenses, so that you have to back out bus fares, advertising. And then PM, ADA, and planning is covered at 80/20 club. So this kind of just gives the overall breakdown of all of the expenses and then where the funding is coming from to support that. And there is additional, so the overall 5307 grant at 4.16 million. There's actually additional funding that we have about 6 million in available funding. So we can allocate that funding however we need it. So you'll see on that last line item, the 1.5, 1.6, 824, 236. So that's where we put that funding. And then the other 2 million we're using for capital expenses. So that's buses. Now we can put more towards operating expenses, but more towards operating expenses means more in local match funds. So that's where, if we expand routes, things like that, that's going to increase the operating expenses. So that's where like we have big share of it coming from the federal government. That funds are there and available But again, that match money has to be there. That's so, yeah, it's just something. And then the page that just kind of gives like overall employee count of 61. It's pretty much similar to last year. I think we had 60 budgeted. The only thing that was changed, we had 35 full-time bus operators. So we toned that down by 1 to 34. We added 2 part-time drivers. So overall, though, like the operations from an employee standpoint is fairly similar. So until like we get to the point where if we want to expand routes, we need additional drivers, things like that. Yeah, this is it's like staying right here. What's that?
What's the street supervisor?
That's so those are people that are on fixed route, like when people are calling in, if they have or I guess like the managing what like so that's for the fixed route, and then the schedulers are for the para, so they're scheduling pickup time.
Street supervisor is the one that just within bus whenever you get driver out. Correct.
Yeah.
On the federal funds, the total amount available was basically that 4.1 plus 2. There's 6 million.
There's about 6 million. Yeah. So there's 2 million additional. So that's where we'll allocate. So generally, like each year, the federal government, again, based on population, low income population, demographics, all that stuff, they kind of have some idea of like, okay, you probably need about X amount of money to operate a transit system in your city, given those parameters. So 6 is, what they allocate. Now we can draw that down how we want, allocate it how we want. So yeah, so the other remaining 2, I mean, draw that 2 down, or we can replace buses, things like that. Yeah, so that's in. So if on that like summary page, you'll see insurance and audit, and so that 25,000, the fixed throughout, we put it towards fixed, but it's 25,000 the annual audit cost.
There's
And that's the same auditors that we had last year, really 10. So we're using them this year. I think 2 or 3 years. It used to be the 4 now. They used to be, I think, Weaver prior to them, but yeah, I think about that.
Yeah, and just kind of, we talked about this whenever the thing was first brought on. This is something our TV dev brought up to us, that they did not, for my time, our TV dev brought up to us that they were not comfortable with Weaver. Too long, and they suggested every 3 to 4 years changing auditor. I mean, probably we keep where we're at now. Where are we on search for another audit firm? Change that around.
So we can look at that, I guess, for the following fiscal, because we'll probably have to put that out to a bid. And but I think like Weaver, we didn't want them to do it because they did the city audit as well, and then they're also doing our audit. So I think that was the reason, yeah, that we changed from them. But yeah, the following fiscal we can look at because we want to put out to bid.
Also doing city audits. So
Weaver's doing that, yeah. Okay, yeah, if y'all switch, because I don't think I think that was the main reason why we switched it, because we didn't want the same auditor doing the city audit as well as our financial audit, so y'all changed it with me. Definitely.
that's
Okay. From this, okay. Yeah, so the following year, I mean, if y'all change the Whitley Penny, definitely we'll probably look at then going out to bid and hiring a new auditor, and even at some point, yeah, if we want to switch auditors and just for thinking of switching. I personally prefer using I understand the value of changing, but then, using the same auditors, like they have an understanding of the business, the financial, all that stuff, it makes at least the initial audit go, or I guess every year an audit go easier, but like otherwise when you're switching them, it's just, just training them on the, how, yeah. Yeah.
I can see that.
Yeah.
But also can understand kind of the public side.
You want different eyes instead of
Doesn't want to
eyes.
see us comfortable on that either. Shouldn't this,
Yeah.
just this one thing, it's
Yep, definitely.
interview days. You have to have that chat.
Yeah, yeah.
Are there any other questions on the numbers or?
Do we have a figure on what it's going to cost to increase? Because I know we talked about complicated about this as far as the call, but that's something that's being asked about housing. Being asked about my housing needs experience. Needing that service. Pretty low income is to be certain. Things that we talked about. We need to have this. Instead, that's it. Either a budget or would be have an idea of what that's exactly.
Okay, but would that be coming from in this coming fiscal or?
Or this year, I don't. That's
Yeah,
definitely something that's being run across the. I think Midland been talking about one, wants to expand around that area, going north. Put our north side of growing.
Just get it up.
Address an amendment to the budget.
yeah, I mean, so I think on the implementation side, we could probably get the implementation side of it figured out, but then it'd be like the funding side where if y'all are, this, I would imagine, because that's in obviously cost more, so then y'all would have to do an amendment and increase funding or how would that?
Yeah, we were chatting through some funding sources. If it turns out that we can use some of the WBC monies, then
This could be, this increase up. That's what more people. But if we get the, numbers to add an additional route. Back.
Maybe your amendment to budget or something along the lines of possible if that affect.
So on the federal funding side, I think would still be covered. Because I don't think, so we're just drawing this down in each of these categories, and we can draw down any remainder. And then we can also move money. So even if we like draw this 4.1 down for this and 2 million capital, then we can file an amendment to reallocate that 2 million capital and say, okay, actually we need like 500,000 to the fixed route now because we have additional things there. So on the federal funding side, yeah, we can file amendments as well.
We still have all those bands around.
Robin just talked about that.
Yeah.
So if we implement the new route, do we have clearance?
Or should that be part of, that would be part of funding. Yeah.
But I mean, right now, we have no driver.
You probably have to hire somebody. You go through and you say, all right, I need to hire.
I know the driver sometimes hard to come.
Good. So we had our
So guys, may I interject here?
Sure.
Hey, she's here.
Sorry, I can't quite hear all of the conversation, but I think you're discussing rolling out new service. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so PJ mentioned that we've identified about $2 million in that we've kind of reserved for capital projects. And what we can do this coming year in budgeting is planning studies are part of what we can classify as planning, and use that money for a route study to take a look at where we can put a route up into the North Odessa area, what the best place would look like, if it should be like microtransit, or if it should be a commuter route, if we need a circulator up there, and the best way to come down from there to make the connections into the city. And to start out with that planning study using those capital funds is probably the really best first step in getting that implemented. And that is eligible for TDCs, which does not require any additional local funding.
Like Kayleen's on the call, and that's your op-ed, that's awesome.
So it seems like that would probably be more of a FY 26 item where we'd have to get, that planning study done, that they would identify like where we would need routes, like how many routes.
How long do those studies typically take to complete, Kayleen?
They take a few months, so we have to go through the procurement process to get a planning consultant on board, since we don't have an on-call consultant. And so we'll go through that. That'll take a little while to get out on the street and then get the proposals reviewed. And then it'll take a few months for them to go through and take a look at, on the ground service, do the review of demographic information, that sort of thing. And then they can come back with alternatives that we could take a look at and decide on if we wanted to move forward with service. And that will really give us a good idea of what's needed, where it's needed, and how much it's going to cost.
You do that this fiscal year?
So it would probably take, one, we have to like put it out for the whole procurement for any of these, like if we're spending FTA funds, right? So we have to like, all the documentation, you got to put it out for bid, evaluate it, and then like select the vendor. And then they have to be okay. Like there's a lot of like FTA like required clauses that they gotta sign that they're not gonna, what we call it, the arms industry work at this and that. And so all that like paperwork has to be done. So that'll take a couple of months just to get the actual vendor identified and procured. And then it's probably like you said, Kaylin, probably like a 3-4 month actual study that they would do.
Yeah, it'll take several months to do this study, and we're not really in a position right now to get extra service started right away anyway, because of our lack of spare vehicles on the ground to put out there. So that also gives us time to get some additional vehicles in as well.
And that's the study in fiscal year 25.
Yeah, if it's something that we're definitely gonna do, we can get started here like in August. Yeah, so sorry, say that one more time.
With all the funds, it's just like,
Yeah, so we have enough funding that'll cover the cost of that study. Yeah, 100%. So yeah, that's something that we get started at least procuring, identifying the vendor, putting it out for bid, all that stuff. That can take a couple of months, and then so it'd be probably like second quarter of next year that would have that route study done, probably just in time for the next budget.
It was fast.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, nothing was fast with that. Yeah. With federal government.
Keep it up.
Yeah.
Anything else that you can have around the budget?
What? She picks me up on the finance committee calls every month, so I get a break today.
I guess since that's an informational item, let's, we don't have any other questions. There's nothing we can do as far as action goes. Move on into thank you for your time, PJ. Get putting that together. Olympics transportation, Kayleen. You gonna do this one, or is PJ doing this?
Okay.
Or?
Yeah, Special Olympics. Kaylee brought it to us at the meeting last month that the city was in talk with Special Olympics, and she went ahead and connected me with them, and we had a call. They're looking to have a sort of circulator service between their event venues in the cities of Odessa and Midland. Yeah, it looks like, I think 4 or 5 locations. The whole circuit would take about a little over an hour, hour and 15 minutes to hit all of the stops between the two cities. And they estimate that they would need to move about 20 to 25 people per hour on those routes. That means that we would need to either provide one of the larger transit coaches or 2 smaller ones to accommodate that number of people. At present, we only have 2 spare large vehicles in our fleet and 2 of the smaller cutaways in our paratransit fleet that we have available, which is a very small number if we think about, sometimes we have to rotate them out so that they can get their preventative maintenance done, or if we have an incident that downs a bus. In addition to that, right now we run on just exactly the number of drivers we need on a day-to-day basis. So we would need to pull either supervisors or like our safety coordinator or training coordinator off what they're doing in order to provide that. So it's looking at it, if it's something that the board feels really strongly about, we could try to make it work. But my recommendation would be to suggest to the cities that they go out for charter service. So I just wanted to bring that to you guys and see what kind of feedback you had.
How many days is?
2 days, it's a Friday and Saturday, the first weekend in October.
Aileen, is there, this is just me asking, I've got CDL. I know somebody else in this room, I think, has CDL as well. Is there a possibility board members could volunteer that and drive buses for Easy Rider? I'm fine with volunteering and taking these 2 days off of work. If that's helpful to that cause as far as labor goes, I'm great with that.
Okay. That's actually something I need to check with our insurance about, if they're okay with non-employees operating the buses. But like I said, manpower is half our issue. Having enough buses to cover routes if we have an issue with a bus breaking down or anything. And the 2 spare buses that we have in our fixed route fleet, the large ones, are our 2009 Eldorados that are really coming to the end of their useful life. And so we can't guarantee that they're always up and running as they should be.
What about reaching out to our other sister agencies, City of Lubbock, Amarillo, Natalie, other districts, to say, hey, can we borrow 2 buses? Can we come up with an arrangement in that direction?
Yeah, we could certainly ask if they would be able to loan out vehicles.
Next, Todd.
I can reach out and do that. Sorry, go ahead.
Look at that, because I really want to try. I would love for us to have that presence in Health Special Olympics. That's really important to me. I don't know, Suzanne's saying it's really important to her, Mayor.
Yeah, I know we were short on vans or stuff. We needed vans.
Haley, so this would be a 100% complete donation, or are they looking at paying the fee of whatever the Easy Rider cost would be to utilize it for those 2 days?
So we would just be essentially donating the service to them. If we charged, it would be considered charter service. And we would have to go out to the charter agencies in the area to make sure none of them wanted the business.
So if it was an issue of where we would have those additional buses running per se as utilized for the city, what if somebody donated the cost of those 2 buses for them to utilize it?
Again, if we take any money for the service, then it would be considered charter.
I sure do think that these riders needs to be one. And as far as serving the community puts a lot into us in the way of taxes, in the way of benefits, both for City of Odessa and City of I really think that if we tell them that they can go out for bid on that, go out for charter service, if that's us serving our needs. Or that on the little bus, you figuring out, grabbing something, making phone calls and going out, but pick up the bus. By all means, let me know. We have to have happy to go do so if they can help us out in that period of time. This is a special event thing. This is something that everybody can get behind from every community across Texas. Pretty supportive of that. So let's see what we can do. Let's try. My thought. I don't know the rest of the next thought is.
Well, if there's any way to, I don't know if there's a donation that would go straight to the Special Olympics to be able to have this in place for them. I know my company's willing to do it, so just putting it out there.
That person will work.
Bus rental might work for a goose route. We have to have ADA on every one of our routes too, don't we? Really?
Special Olympics.
Well, I'm thinking about taking one of our buses off, take a bus off the fixed route, move to the other. I'm gonna close down one of our other routes by any means, but, could we take a rental bus or a rental bus on the fixed route? One of our buses, route, temporary route, and that's it.
Can I ask a question real quick?
Yes, sir.
Kayleen, is the request, is it for the 4 days that Special Olympics are going to be operating? Is it 4, 3, or do we know?
My understanding is it's 2, the Friday and Saturday, that first weekend of October.
What are the, is there a window of operating time in those 2 days?
Yes, 9 to 4.
Okay, so they would have to be, buses would have to be prepped and be, do they have a schedule? What time? Special schedule? What time's picking up? I mean, what's the rotation of every hour on the hour?
Yeah, they just asked that a bus come by every hour, and because of the amount of time that it takes just to get between their
The two
different
cities.
locations.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be about like an hour and 15, hour and 20-minute circulation time. So unless we end up doing 2 of the smaller buses running.
Yeah. Special Olympics is the one that's making the request, and it's not the cities that are involved in this. And they had asked us about what the possibility was, and I told them that they had to make the request directly to Easy Rider. I didn't know. I knew the board would be discussing it. I just didn't know if it was going to be for the 2 days. So that kind of narrows it down to 2 days, 9 to 2. I guess being that Friday and Saturday, correct?
Correct. Yeah, 9 to 4.
9 to 4. I'm sorry. That if that helps, every hour on the hour, so it just shows you the how many routes there'll be, and how long it'll go. If you look at the schedule, and if it's a possibility, I think they were under the aware that the request would be, and that it'd be up to Easy Rider to be able to handle it. For the manpower, the availability of the vehicles, and if it would adversely affect the routes. Like their backup plan they would have to go charge, trying to limit the expense as much as possible.
Could we have handled the bus?
I'm sorry.
Robert, what's the verdict on them getting? Do you think we might be up by October? Or do you think we're down for the count for the next 6 months?
You count for the next 3 years.
What's
I'm not getting any feedback from anywhere. I'm getting quicker than all the rest. Nobody else take the possibility.
The problem is we got buses. That's something for your report. Really?
What's the problem with it?
Crates. We can get them moved, we just can't get them signed. Definitely not something we want to use the question. It's on that for sure. Okay. And we want to, I still think that we need to figure out how to help these guys. I still think, yeah.
If we can do it without taking away from our routes. But if it takes away from routes that we use every day. Used to.
And we're talking about the smaller buses as far as para, what's the, we can't take, what is our volume on a Friday for para? Saturday, para is not gonna be using quite as much. I wouldn't think it would be doctor appointments, same way it would be on Saturday.
People going to work.
The para availability would be a lot more on Saturday than it would be on Friday, correct?
Correct.
We're really looking to figure out the day where it comes.
How many people is there? She's saying 21. She's saying 21.
That we run into a pair of buses. Fridays, nobody's having a pair of buses, they are on every other day of the week. We need to figure out, we really need to figure out. that.
So are you going to reach out to Kayleen and see if we can borrow a bus from Mrs. Drake? See that.
Can we do that, Kaylee?
Yeah, if you guys would like us to go ahead and move forward with, seeing what we can do in order to make sure that we absolutely provide service to the Special Olympics, then we'll go ahead and take a look at what our options are as far as having, volunteers who are non-employees drive the buses, seeing if we can get buses, on loan from a sister agency. We'll explore whatever creative options we need to and make it happen.
Let's do that.
Okay. All right, we'll move forward with that then.
So general manager report.
Okay. So as you can see from the charts in your packet, ridership compared to May was slightly up on fixed route and commuter service for June and slightly down for paratransit service, and that's for a total of 25 running days. And on-time performance was 92% for both fixed route and paratransit service. And then we didn't have any workers' comp claims in June, and we only had one collision that was a rear ending at one of our bus stops. Somebody ran into the back of a parked bus. So happily, that was not our fault, and no one was injured in that incident. Maintenance has been working to provide all the information on our Dodge problems, and those 6 Dodges being down is part of our spare bus issue right now. Not having those is really hurting us. But they haven't received any follow-up from Dodge or anyone else involved in this yet. So we're kind of in a holding pattern at this point, and trying to make ourselves as annoying as possible in order to get answers back. And we noticed some storm damage to the roof of the annex recently, so we went ahead. The roof that was on there was apparently the original, so we had that repaired, or actually replaced entirely, following that hailstorm and the tornado. And it's apparently looking pretty bad up there. And then we are still working on reissuing the transit planner position to replace me, and so we should be re-advertising that soon. That will help us with getting, like we said, that route planning study, the scope outlined, and getting that out on the street. And we had stopped DWI in actually a little earlier this month to do our drug and alcohol refresher training for the year. That doubled as our safety refresher class for this year as well. If you're not familiar with Stop DWI, they're a great program. They come in and they do like classroom instruction, and then they also bring the impairment goggles. And so our drivers got to drive our golf cart through an obstacle course wearing impairment goggles that either simulated being drunk, being high, having a concussion, or driving at night. And we got a lot of really good feedback on that, although a large portion of that might have been just getting to trash talk each other about how they did on the course. And then in addition, we have instructed our advertisers, Hancock. We had gotten a request or someone reached out to see if we were interested in partnering with one of the local radio stations to stop drunk driving campaign. And so we're doing that. So you should be hearing those stop drunk driving ads sponsored by Easy Rider on the radio. And that's all I have for you guys.
I'm assuming we do not have anything for executive session at this point in time that I'm aware of. So we move on to that business. We've got requests for future agenda items. Anybody have any requests for future agenda items? Well, that being said, somebody want to make a motion to adjourn?
To move.
Got a motion? Sounds like we got a second on that too. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Good. Meeting's adjourned.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just so you know, 2 weeks ago, I was.
You got to see.
Two big, bad news.
I mean, we need to see if I can get it.